story about acceptance. Once upon a time, there was a little girl with brown hair and brown eyes and a huge imagination and a love of knowing things and big feelings and parents who kind of didn't get her. She would lie in the backyard, looking up at the snow falling on her, not coming inside, even when the neighbor called her mother and asked, "What's wrong with your little girl? She's just lying in the snow." The mother had no answer, just laughed along with the neighbor at the little girl's weirdness. She would explore the woods near her home. She played football with the neighborhood boys. She made friends with everyone. Adults called her bossy, talkative, smart, but weird. She didn't know or didn't care that they said this, and she just carried on, weirdness and all. Her family moved a lot, many times in her childhood, and she learned to make friends fast. She also learned to copy the styles and the dialects and the popular things where she was in that moment, and she was never sure what she liked. She only knew that she desperately needed to belong. This little girl grew up, many iterations of this little girl grew up. She was so confused about who she really was, and she decided to try on different personas. Was she a poet, a party girl, a guy's girl, alternative country or rock? Did she want to be a teacher, a doctor, a pharmacist, or a writer? Did she like the city or the beach or the mountains? Did she even believe she had to make a choice? Couldn't she like them all? There was no answer for her then. And so she let her life live her in some ways. She reacted to things. Doing poorly in class, change your major. Deep crisis of faith, date a wholly unsuitable man of another faith. Severe depression that her own severely depressed mother did not recognize, drink more. Her parents' financial ruin, married too young, too dumb, and too poor to ever feel the safety or security that she thought that marriage would bring. So this little girl, now a grown-up woman, had two children in this never safe marriage, and one day it all came crashing down. She drove past a huge cemetery in her city on her way to pick up the children from school, because it was always her job to pick up the children from school, and she woke up. She realized suddenly that she could gloss over her life again, or she could face it, accept it, and deal with it. She was lonely. She was deeply unhappy. She wasn't sure about anything. And she was entangled and entrenched in a life that was moving past her. And so she decided that now, today, this moment, she would try to keep up. She'd run her life, disentangle, find some certainty about something, anything. And so that year, she burned her life down, tried to protect her children from the flames. And in the rubble that was left, she discovered all the little boxes of who she was. And she found out some things. She liked country music and alternative music. She saw beauty in mountains and cities and beaches. She wanted to help people and tell stories. She was better alone than lonely, and she wanted to find and know and tell the truth. She found that she could be, I'm sorry, she found that she could say she was and didn't always have to be or. Purple was her favorite color, and she loved blue and green and the colors of the sun and the northern lights and fleshy mangoes. She liked tight jeans and boots and sparkly jewelry, and she liked a classic tailored look. But mostly she liked jeans and hoodies and socks and slippers, which ironically I'm wearing right now. Socks and slippers when it grew cold in the winter, and flip flops and shorts and tank tops when the sun blistered. And as she continued to unpack boxes and unpack herself, she continued to raise her children and climb the ladder and manage her unruly puppy. And she learned language for all that she had experienced in her marriage and her childhood, and that language broke her heart again. And she feared that maybe she wasn't as strong and smart as she thought she was. But then, but then she learned the language of survivors. She learned the language of freedom and happiness and beauty. She saw herself through a lens of curiosity instead of criticism, and she saw a side of herself she'd never known before. A woo-woo, spiritual but not religious person seeking destiny and purpose and truth and love and peace. And one day, many days during the search for purpose and destiny and love and truth and peace, a person, many different people, charts, stars, and signs told her, "You're a healer. Your soul is here to create boundaries and familial bonds. You came to this place in time to lead people to their own resolution and their own acceptance." No way, she thought over and over. How can someone as broken as myself heal others? How can someone as weak as myself set and hold boundaries? How can someone who walked away from a marriage and did the bare minimum for her mother and felt only relief when that mother died, be a person who's built strong family bonds. It wasn't possible. The people in charts and stars and signs who called her a healer had gotten it wrong. Then one day, her children, her baby birds, were ready to fly from the nest. And now she was the mother of grown kids, amazing kids, maybe the mother of dragons, for all the fierceness and fire and justice they were taking into the world. And it was in that moment, the moment of putting her youngest on a plane with 2 suitcases and a backpack to move to a city he'd never visited, an apartment he'd never seen, to live with a roommate he'd never met in person, to attend a school he'd never set foot in, that she accepted her role, knowing she could not have done that, would not have been allowed to do that. But watching herself be an accomplice to her own child's escape, it began to seem true. Maybe she was a healer, and maybe she was healed. She had healed the sickness that haunted her own family. Her children would not pass it on to the next generation. Her grandchildren would not be afflicted. Her legacy would not be leaving children with merely guilt and relief. So rather than be consumed by the fire, she had used it to forge something more and something better. And by accepting all she was supposed to do, she realized that maybe she had already done it.